During the events of The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon defeats Darth Maul. He and Obi-Wan then leave Naboo and return to Coruscant. Qui-Gon formally begins Anakin's training and begins to train him in the ways of the living Force. Over time, Anakin begins to trust Qui-Gon. Anakin often speaks to him about how much he misses his mother. Qui-Gon instructs him that these feelings are normal and that he shouldn't feel ashamed for having them. Qui-Gon would frequently remind Anakin of his role as the Chosen One. As time went on, Anakin began to feel the pressure of his role and felt he was not doing enough to fulfill it. One day, Qui-Gon reminds Anakin that he needs to take their training seriously if he is to be the Chosen One. Anakin, having felt the pressure build over the years, lashes back at Qui-Gon saying, "I don't want to be the Chosen One." Qui-Gon, realizing he has overlooked the pressure that has been placed on Anakin, apologizes. During this time, Qui-Gon runs into his former master Count Dooku. They begin to discuss their discontent with the Jedi Order, especially for how they handled the threat of Darth Maul. Dooku tells Qui-Gon that he plans to leave the Jedi Order, but Qui-Gon convinces him to stay. Years go by, and they are called by the Jedi Council to protect Queen Padme. During this time, Anakin struggles with his feelings for Padme and decides to tell Qui-Gon. During this conversation, Qui-Gon supports Anakin's feelings for Padme. Anakin begins to have more respect and love for Qui-Gon. He decides to take his training more seriously. After another attempt is made on Padme's life, Qui-Gon joins up with his former Padawan Obi-Wan as they go and investigate the assassin. While on their mission, they run into another Sith Lord, Asajj Ventress. They find themselves astonished at how quick she is, and more so how efficient she is with two blades. As they battle, they find themselves getting pushed back farther and farther toward a cliff. Qui-Gon, fearful she may be too agile for them, attempts to predict her move and duck out of the way. He then rushes to Obi-Wan's aid. Obi-Wan, however, had the situation under control. Asajj and Obi-Wan's lightsabers are locked as they stand on the very edge of the cliff. Obi-Wan quickly uses the Force to push Asajj over the edge. He then lets out a sigh of relief and jokingly says, "That was too easy." Qui-Gon begins to laugh. Then suddenly he sees a red glow come from Obi-Wan's chest, and then shortly after, he sees the tip of the crimson-red lightsaber. As Obi-Wan's body falls, he sees Asajj smile maniacally. Qui-Gon screams and runs to attack Asajj. However, she is able to escape by jumping on her ship as it passes by. Qui-Gon sits there holding Obi-Wan's body and begins to sob. Heartbroken, Qui-Gon returns to the Council pleading they spare more Jedi to hunt down the Sith Lord. The Council still denies the possibility of the Sith returning, stating that it was most likely a rogue Jedi. This further divides the gap in the trust Qui-Gon has for the Order. Count Dooku is there for Qui-Gon, consoling him after the loss of his Padawan. During this time, Anakin begins seeing visions of his mother in peril and decides to go to Tatooine to save her. When he arrives, he finds that his mother has been taken by the Tusken Raiders, and he goes to try and rescue her. Only to have been too late, he begins to be fueled with hatred and grabs his lightsaber. However, amid his anger, he is reminded of Qui-Gon's constant devotion to the living Force. He pauses and begins to meditate. He stops himself from killing the Tusken Raiders and goes back to mourn with Padme. It's here Padme sees Anakin's vulnerable side and begins to have feelings for him. Qui-Gon, lamenting the loss of his Padawan, continues to search for the person who had commissioned the hit on Padme's life, only this time he is accompanied by Count Dooku. They believe the hit came from a man who lives on Kamino. Qui-Gon warns Anakin to be on alert as there is another Sith Lord. While on Tatooine, Anakin and Padme are attacked by Asajj. Anakin is knocked unconscious, and when he awakes, he finds that Padme has been taken. He urgently sends a transmission to Qui-Gon, notifying him of Padme's disappearance. Qui-Gon urges Anakin to calm down. Anakin snaps back, stating, "I'm going to kill her. I'm going to find the Sith Lord and kill her." Qui-Gon chastises Anakin and reminds him that revenge is not the way of the Jedi, and that he must be patient. Anakin yells back, "You don't understand! I love her! I will do anything for her!" And then the transmission cuts. Qui-Gon looks back to Dooku, and they both realize they don't have much time before Anakin does something drastic. Anakin boards Padme's ship and hurries to find her. He meditates, connecting with the Force to try and sense where she may be. Feeling as if he may know where she is, he makes the jump to light speed. Qui-Gon and Dooku stop their journey to Kamino to go and help Anakin. Qui-Gon, fearing something could happen to Anakin and Padme, had placed a tracker on Padme's ship before they left for Kamino. He sees that it begins to take off and he follows the signal. They find themselves on a dark world at night in the Outer Rim. The world seems to be ancient. There is no electricity. They attempt to speak to a local who doesn't speak basic and waves them off. Qui-Gon stops and meditates, trying to sense Anakin's location. He tells Dooku to follow him. At this time, Anakin finds himself in a dark, abandoned building. Unable to see, he activates his lightsaber. He hears the boards creaking. He senses another being drop down on top of him. He quickly reacts, moving out of the way. He sees Asajj. He yells, "I thought it was you! Where is she?" Asajj responds as if she doesn't know what he's talking about. "Who? The Queen?" Anakin, annoyed by her question, attacks. Asajj jumps out of the way and uses the Force to hit Anakin with a rock. Anakin falls to the ground with the rock on top of him, slowly crushing him. He yells in frustration. Asajj laughs and says, "The eager Jedi are never too bright. I'll tell the Queen you came for her as I deliver her demise." Anakin, fueled with anger yet again, is stopped as he remembers his training from Qui-Gon. He remains calm, and as Asajj walks away, he lifts the rock by using the Force. They duel, and as they fight, Anakin tries to use the Force to predict her next move. In doing so, he is able to cut her hand off, disarming her. Asajj screams in pain and annoyance that the Jedi has defeated her. She grabs her lightsaber and begins to flee. Anakin pursues her until he hears Padme's voice. Anakin stops pursuit to find her. At this time, Qui-Gon and Dooku get to the building. Anakin points them in the direction of Asajj. They run in an attempt to find her, and when they get to her, they see her about to board a ship. Dooku jumps in front of her to stop her, and they begin to battle. Dooku, having a large stature, experience, and both hands, easily defeats Asajj. Qui-Gon and Dooku begin to question her, but as they begin their interrogation, she succumbs to her injuries. They begin to hear a beep coming from Asajj's body. Qui-Gon sees that it's a transmission. He opens the transmission, and they see a hooded figure who asks, "Is it done? Have you taken care of the Queen?" Dooku interrupts, asking, "Who is this?" The transmission cuts. They return to find Anakin tending to Padme's wounds. They immediately fly to a med center where Padme heals. After the encounter they had, they report to the Council, but this time they tell them about the evidence of the hooded figure. The Council, still skeptical, states that they will discuss what actions need to be taken. While the Council discusses, Dooku and Qui-Gon begin to discuss their options if the Council doesn't decide to help them. At this point, both of them are fed up with the Order, especially for their lack of initiative on the looming threat of the Sith. They decide that they will leave the Order if the necessary actions are not taken. Anakin, surprised by what they are saying, urges them to reconsider. They are then called back to be in front of the Council. The Council states that they will help investigate this matter. Relieved, Anakin, Qui-Gon, and Dooku all smile at each other. The Council then proceeds to tell them they will give 2 additional Jedi to help. Shocked at the low number of resources, Anakin begins to protest, urging them to reconsider the threat. Master Yoda dismisses Anakin's outburst, stating that he is too emotional because of the attachment that is beginning to form with Padme. Furious, Anakin says, "If you are not willing to help fight the Sith, then maybe the Jedi have truly lost their ways." He then storms out, followed by Qui-Gon and Dooku. Now, having left the Order, they begin to investigate further. They find that the transmission came from the planet Geonosis. They then travel there and begin to question the people of the mysterious figure. During their questioning, they find that there had been a bounty hunter there. They believe it was the same one they were looking for on Kamino. They go to Kamino, and while there they find that one of Dooku's old friends, Sifo Dyas, had commissioned the Kaminoans to create clones for the Republic. Here they encounter the bounty hunter, Jango Fett. They attempt to stop him, but he begins to run. They catch up to him, and as they approach him, they raise their lightsabers. Jango, seeing that he is outmanned by 3 Jedi, decides to tell them everything he knows. He tells them that he was reached out to by a man named Darth Sidious, and that is all the information he had on the man. They begin to leave back to Coruscant. While in transit, Anakin tells Qui-Gon and Dooku that they should go to Senator Palpatine since the Jedi have been no help, and maybe he could persuade the Republic to help them with this imminent threat. Qui-Gon and Dooku agree. When they arrive, they enter Palpatine's office. Here they begin to explain the situation. During their conversation, Palpatine begins to receive a transmission. He promptly ignores it. Qui-Gon, sensing that something is off, tells Palpatine to answer it. Palpatine, somewhat offended, says, "I will answer when I see fit. You should be more respectful, Master Qui-Gon." Dooku, sensing that something is wrong, ensures Palpatine that it is no issue if he answers. Palpatine, even more visibly upset, tells them they should leave. It's at this time Anakin uses the Force to grab the comm link. When he picks it up, they hear the voice of Jango Fett saying, "You may be in danger, 3 Jedi came by." At this moment, Palpatine jumps from his desk, stabbing Dooku in the chest with his lightsaber, and then quickly turns and stabs Qui-Gon in the leg. Anakin, taken back by the attack, pedals backward, attempting to gain his composure. Palpatine then lunges forward at Anakin, causing Anakin to rely on his defense training, the one aspect of his training he didn't feel confident in. Anakin, using the Force to predict Palpatine's movements, goes back and forth, looking for an opportunity to disarm him. Anakin trips and is forced to use all of his strength to push back on the downward force from Palpatine. Anakin begins to lose his strength as Palpatine's lightsaber begins to come down closer to Anakin's face. Suddenly, he feels the downward force stop, and as he opens his eyes, he sees Qui-Gon engaging. Anakin then jumps up and attempts to aid his master, who is limping from his wound. Palpatine is stuck going back and forth between the 2 Jedi. He then uses the Force to push Qui-Gon against the wall. Qui-Gon is then knocked out. Anakin, fearful for his life, realizes he has no one else to save him. He reverts to Qui-Gon's ways and attempts to connect with the living Force. He feels that all he can do is stay on the defensive. Shortly after, he finds himself back against the wall as Palpatine laughs and pushes the blade closer to Anakin's neck. Anakin, panicked, attempts to regain control of his breath. He then reaches out to the Force, grabbing Dooku's lightsaber and then igniting it. Palpatine's eyes widen in utter shock as he looks down and sees Anakin had stabbed him through the heart. Palpatine's lightsaber turns off, and he falls to his knees and then folds over. Anakin rushes to Qui-Gon, who awakes, astonished to see Anakin still alive. They limp over to Dooku, who unfortunately died from Palpatine's initial attack. They report to the Council what had transpired. The Council apologizes and offers to have both Anakin and Qui-Gon back in the Order. Having seen the fallacies in the Order, they both refuse. They go on to form their own Jedi Order, one that is not founded on old practices and focuses more on the living Force. They have funerals for both Obi-Wan and Count Dooku. Qui-Gon stands in pain and sorrow while attending the funerals of both his master and Padawan. Qui-Gon finds himself often thinking of Obi-Wan and Dooku. He attempts to connect with them through the Force. Anakin goes on to marry Padme and have 2 kids, Luke and Leia.